So yes, I've been preparing the content since yesterday, and then I was trying to cram in as much information as possible within this 90 minute. And I know not everyone is a beginner. I know you guys have been preparing for the exam for some time, so I respect that. That's why I'm not going into the core basics of it. Okay, so I assume that you know AWS a bit, and then you've been at least doing something about it. Okay, either training for it or preparing for the certification or such. So, and then within 90 minutes, I'll try to give you the value of at least 2 to 3 weeks. But the interesting point is I could not cram in everything. I felt this is unfair to put everything in one session. So I can do part 2 of this probably next Sunday. Where we can schedule it with Vamsi. Otherwise, it's not fair. That's what I thought. Vamsi also didn't know about it. Okay, so it's all about you now. So yep. I've been given 90 minutes of your time, so definitely I respect your time. So I will only focus on relevant topics to the certification. So there are about 2,600 or 700 services, AWS services out there. No one person in the world knows everything about it, but you don't need to for all practical purposes for your exam. So I'll only focus on the relevant topics for the exam. And by no means this is everything, absolutely. So I train people for 4 weeks, in parallel, going deep, and then talk about the architecting it, and talk about various aspects to it, and putting the things together, plumbing. But within 90 minutes, I'll do my best. So yes, I'll not talk about what is cloud and why is it, why now, all of that. It's not for you guys. You've been doing it for some time, so I will dive in. So yes, interrupt me if needed. If your question is relevant to the certifications, then I'll try to answer. And again, if it's a separate topic on its own, then maybe I'll leave it at the 10,000 view and then move forward. Okay, given the content that I have here. Okay, what do I talk about today? Well, I'll talk about the AWS Global Infrastructure. So how did AWS become this popular? Has been #1 in public cloud industry. So how is it able to do it? What's that global infrastructure look like? What are some of the concepts related to our certification perspective? And then I'll talk about identity and access management. It's a simple concept, but I'll talk about that. And then I'll dive into the most, the nuts and bolts of real services like Elastic Cloud Compute Cloud, EC2, S3, RDS. And there's a lot of good stuff in VPC towards the end. So please hang in there. And yeah, I'll take you through the journey. So that's where I will stop with the part 1. So I might do about 90 minutes or so. I might go a little more than that. Any questions so far? Okay, let's dive in to AWS Global Infrastructure. So yes, so AWS made this possible by bringing the complete world into one place. How is it able to do it to the scale at which it already did? So what AWS did at the architecture level is that, so throughout the globe, they built the data centers, and they have connected with their own backbone. Okay, they have their own low latency, high bandwidth network that's connecting all of them. So across the globe, if you look at it, these are called regions. So, okay, these are called regions. So there is a concept of region in the global infrastructure level. So they divided the whole world into multiple geographical regions. So let's talk about that. So there is a concept of region here. So it's a cluster of data centers in a specific geographic area. So let's say we have US Northern Virginia. That's called US East 1. That happens to be the first data center in the entire AWS. That's in Northern Virginia. And then we have one region in Ohio that's called US East 2. And then we have a couple in West. Okay, we have Northern California, and then we have Oregon. So they divided this into geographical regions. And then we have few in Europe, few in Asia Pacific. So one in Mumbai, one in Singapore. So it's, they have all over. One in South Africa. So it's, they have presence everywhere. So that's why for your global needs, you got this covered. So understand this concept of region here. Region is nothing but a logical geographical region. Okay, so within that, there are cluster of AWS data centers are available. So the reason it's important is cluster of data centers. It's not one data centers. Within that, we have multiple data centers within a region. They are called availability zones. So for all practical purposes, availability zone can be viewed as a data center. It's not it's not one physical data center, because there could be within an availability zone, there could be multiple physical data centers. But one availability zone can be viewed as one data center for all practical purposes. Okay, so within a Ohio region, we have three availability zones. So these are far enough. These are about 100 kilometers apart, each availability zone within a region, so that natural calamities in one availability zone cannot affect the second one. If there is lightning in Cleveland, Ohio, it can't affect the one in Cincinnati, let's say. I'm just throwing out as an example. So within a region, we have these multiple availability zones, with Northern Virginia being the highest number of availability zones. They have 6 availability zones. So the reason this concept is important is because as an architect, when you're architecting for the cloud, you have to understand this. So you have to be able to architect for failure. So how can you take the failure? So if one availability zone is down, meaning God forbid there is earthquake in one area, being an architect, you have to be able to answer that. Does it impact my business? How can I architect in such a way that it does not impact I'm still in business? So later on, I'll talk about some of the other services. You have to be able to distribute them across all the availability zones. That's being an architect, you have to think about it. Okay, so these are separate within a region, but again, these are interconnected also. So these availability zones are interconnected with high bandwidth, low latency networking. Amazon uses their own backbone internet for this one. Make sense? They're far enough that natural calamities in one area cannot affect the other one, but again, they are connected with high bandwidth and low latency networking. So understand these two concepts. Okay, so that's about the global infrastructure, right? Now let's talk briefly about this identity and access management. So it's a security topic. So you have a lot of services. I'll talk about few services today, but there are a lot of AWS services. So how will I be able to make sure that only the people who are supposed to get access to, they get the access? So accidentally, I don't want anyone to get access and then get ruined. So how will I be able to do this? So they have this global service. IAM is one of the global services. When I say global, I mean region agnostic. So we have these regions, okay? Understand this one from here onwards. 99% of the services are region specific. When you spin a virtual machine, when you provision a virtual machine, you are provisioning within a region. When you provision, later on I'll talk about a concept called, service called S3. So when you create an S3 bucket, you are doing it within a region. So there are only a couple of global services. IAM happens to be one of them. It's a global service, and it's a way to manage access to AWS services and resources. All of your services and all the resources that you create. So this is how you will do it. So the way they architecture is really beautiful. I'm particularly excited about it. When I first learned about this one, right? So there is a concept called policy. Policy is nothing but a simple JSON document, like in this example here. Okay, it's a simple JSON document that defines all the AWS permissions that can be allowed or denied to a specific service or set of services. So you define a policy like this. See here how fine-grained these policies are. Every policy, this is called IAM policy. So it's a JSON document. So every policy has a version here, and you have multiple statements here. And each statement has an effect. Okay, what are you doing? Are you allowing a permission, or are you denying a permission? That's what effect means. An action. Okay, what are you allowing it if you're allowing it? Or what are you denying it if you're denying it? Okay, and then what resource is that? Okay, so any specific fine-grained details here? Okay, so see here, this statement is saying that allow EC2 instance to everybody, granting access to all EC2 actions on all resources in all regions. This is a high-level statement there. You can also specify an additional statement, deny a specific ones. So running an instances, you are denying it. Okay, and you are denying running an instance if it's not like any of these ones. So you can be that fine-grained and then put all of that logic in a JSON document. This is called IAM policy. Now take that IAM policy and go attach to various people, various aspects in IAM. So in an IAM world, if that's clear, in IAM world, you have this concept of user. Okay, so user is nothing but, as we know, it can be a regular human being who needs access to AWS Management Console. Management Console is where you log in, and then you'll be able to see all the services. You'll be able to provision various services. Okay, so you have this concept of user. That user can be human being or an application also, a programmatic access also. So you will talk about username and password if it's a human being. Otherwise, you will talk about access key and secret access ID, access ID and secret access key. So they are equivalent to username and password. But essentially, you have the concept of user and you have a concept of group. Group is nothing but group of users. That's all. And then you have an additional concept called role. So what the concept of role is. So again, you can attach JSON IAM policy to either. So what role is that? Role allows AWS services to perform actions on your behalf. Let's say you provisioned your EC2 instance and you wanted to give this EC2 instance to talk to a S3 service. So if you want this service to talk to an additional service on your behalf, I don't want to store my username and password there, or I don't want to store my access key ID and secret access key. That's a bad way of doing it. Rather, I will assign the appropriate policies. I will attach the appropriate policies to a role, and I'll give that role to this AWS service, this EC2 AWS service. and this guy will act on behalf of you. Since this guy has got that role, and that role has those IAM policies attached, it will be able to perform on your behalf. So whatever the security concepts that you typically you deal with, same security principles are applicable for AWS resources and AWS services also. Meaning, if you want one AWS service to do certain things, the same rules are applicable. Are you letting that service to do it on your behalf? Does it have the appropriate IAM policy one way or the other? So you can attach this IAM policy at the user level, group level, or role level, if it makes sense. That's how you get it. Okay. So let's talk about that's about the global service. Understand that IAM is a global service. It's one of the important aspect from the exam perspective. You could be asked. Anyways, so let's talk about let's start with the compute service. So compute service is all about your virtual machines and spinning up the virtual machines, etc. So AWS has this concept of elastic compute cloud. It's EC2. There are two C's there. That's why it's called EC2. And EC2 is AWS compute service. And using EC2, you can provision your EC2 virtual machines. If you want to, provision a virtual machine in the cloud, this is the service that you would need. And again, you'll be charged per hour or per second billing. Depends on your instance types. I'll talk about what the instance types are. Okay. And we talked about region and availability zones, right? So when you are provisioning an EC2 instance, you are provisioning within a specific availability zones. Again, specific one availability zones means one data center. You can view that way. Okay, so let's talk about it. You want to provision a simple virtual machine in the cloud. So before we go to the virtual machine area, let's talk about the architecture of a typical physical machine. So your laptop, your desktop, what kind of architecture is that? You have a hardware on top of it. You have operating system. On that you have multiple apps. Make sense? You have your multiple apps within your laptop, right? This is how a typical virtual physical machine looks like. Now let's talk about, so as we all know, this is a multi-tenant public cloud. AWS is a multi-tenant public cloud. What does it mean? Well, what it means is you can get a dedicated physical machine within AWS, but that could cost you fortune. So you don't want to do that. Rather, you don't need to do that. Actually, they're isolated very nicely. So what you want to do is you want to spin your virtual machines. So, okay, how does this architecture work in the concept of virtual machines? Well, you again have a hardware, you have a processor and such. And on top of it, you could have a host OS, your operating system. This is optional. There are two kinds of virtual machine types, but I took one of them, which has a host OS. And on top of it, you will install something called hypervisor. Hypervisor is a firmware that goes on top of the host OS, or in another type, it could go directly on the bare metal itself. So what it gives is that it gives a platform for you to install as many, they call it guest operating systems, as possible. So you can install, now you can create multiple virtual machines. So you have a single physical machine under the hood, but within that you are creating multiple virtual machines. You're creating one virtual machine. Let's say you have Red Hat Linux on it. This is a guest OS. It doesn't matter what the host OS is, but you will be able to install your Red Hat Linux on it, and on top of it, you have multiple apps. And let me spin one more virtual machine. So my one physical machine, I'm able to provision multiple virtual machine with a completely different operating system now. I have guest OS 2. It can be completely different. And then I have multiple apps running there. So each guy thinks that I'm running in a dedicated hardware. No, you're actually, it's a multi-tenant environment. Multiple tenants are sharing the same hardware, but nobody knows about it. That's the beauty of it. So, well, you can spin on one more virtual machine and a completely different operating system again, and then multiple apps. So this is the concept of virtual machine. And when you spin a new EC2 instance, meaning you are creating this virtual machine, you are creating a machine, a virtual machine. You think it's, for all practical purposes, that's your computer on the cloud, pretty much, without you having to worry about the underlying hardware. You will be able to spin that in minutes. In fact, you can automate it and do it. We'll be able to pretty much provision the entire infrastructure within minutes. Okay, so that's the beauty of the cloud, right? You can code your infrastructure. Anyways, so now once you create this virtual machine in AWS Management Console, you will go there and you will provision a new virtual machine, meaning new EC2 instance. When you create that, you can attach a storage to that. Obviously, your compute needs certain block level storage. That's where you want to install your operating system and such, right? So you can attach your storage to an EC2 instance. So block storage is nothing but a raw storage. That is where you can install your operating system, or you can install your databases, any kind of software on that. Okay, it's not for you to go read it pretty easily. There are two kinds of storages: block storage and object storage. I'll talk about later when we talk about S3. But block storage is where you typically install your operating system now. Anyways, so there are two types of block storages that you can get with an EC2 instance. One is called instance store. What this instance store is, it's a temporary block store that's directly attached to the physical machine of your virtual machine. Let's say 3 virtual machine in our example, right? We took one and someone else took the virtual machine too. But there is the underlying physical machine. So this instance store is directly attached to that. Okay, it's a temporary block store. And the downside of this instance store is you can use this instance store for something like caching. Okay, that's a good use case. But the downside is that data will not survive reboot. When you reboot your virtual machine, your data will be lost. So there is a second kind of block store called elastic block store. So these are external block storages that are attached to your EC2 instance. It's a separately attached to your host computer. They are not directly on the host computer itself. They are like external hard drives, pretty much. You can view it as that. These can be detached from one virtual machine and then attached to another, because all of your data is saved in that volume. That's what we call it. Okay, EBS volume. So volume is nothing but a hard disk. That's where it gets stored. Now I can detach it and then attach to another virtual machine. Now that virtual machine will have full access to it. So data will survive the reboots. Okay, from exam perspective, you can attach these volumes to one EC2 instance only. Both the instance store and elastic block store, okay, you can attach to only one EC2 instance. Let's say I have 10 EC2 instances and they need like external hard drive. My home directory, I have to be able to, it doesn't matter what machine I'm logged in, I want to have access to a shared NFS mount, like NFS mount. Okay, if you want that, you need to use a separate service called EFS, Elastic File Store. But these are not you cannot mount these to multiple EC2 instances. I want you to, understand that going into the exam. Okay, so when you provision an EC2 instance, there are multiple types here. There are a general purpose EC2 instances. So these general purposes, they typically balance compute, memory, and networking resources together. You don't have a specific need. And these are the types: your T1, T2, T3, M4, M5, M6, and A1. You're not expected to really, memorize this, but it's a good idea to kind of have that, understanding. So with your free tier account, you typically go with the T2 Micro, right? T2 Micro is a free EC2 instance that they'll give you for 720 hours per month. Right? The T2 comes under general purpose. So in addition to that, you have a compute optimized, your C4s and C5s. These are high performance processors. If you really need, high CPU intensive workload, then go for that. Very, very expensive, but go for them. If you need something like a memory optimized stuff, large RAM, you can get RAMs up to terabytes. You can go for R5s, R5, X1, Z1s, etc. And there is another one called, if you're doing some high GPU complex calculations now, big data, if you're doing any of those accelerated computing ones, you have to go for G stands for GPU there, G3, G4, these ones. So if you want to read and write super fast, high sequential read, write, and local storage, then you have to go with this storage optimized. You do not need to memorize these types going into the exam, but have a general idea that T series is a general purpose, C for compute, R for RAM, G for GPU. Have a general idea there, please, going into the exam. Okay.
Okay, this is Ahmed. Quick question.
Yeah.
Light sail specifically goes for general purpose. Is light sail generally general purpose machine, or is it more of memory optimized?
So light sail, actually, it's a little different, Amit. So there, it's not really, in your triangle, you have your infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, right? That typically comes under platform as a service without you having to worry a lot about it. You will be able to spin either way, but you go in that middle tier, more of a light sail is mainly for the people. I don't know much about it. Okay, I want to quickly have my WordPress site up and running quickly. How can I do it? That's the light sail. You understand?
Got it. Yep, makes sense.
So when you spin these instance types, right? So EC2 pricing options. Let's take a look at it. When you spin these EC2 instances, what are all the options out there? So the first option is on demand. As the name says, it's simple. If you use it for 5 minutes, you'll be charged for 5 minutes. Either again per hour billing or per second billing based on the instance types, as I said. Okay, certain instance types they charge per second, but certain instance types they charge up to the full hour. So on demand is that. If you use it for 2 hours, you're only paying for 2 hours. You'll be paying little more, but that's a completely ad hoc. And the spot instances, it's an interesting concept. So obviously AWS has built these massive data centers, right? So obviously it's possible that a lot of computing resources are wasted there. So AWS, what it does is, hey, I have these resources up for bidding. So you can bid a price for that. So give me a C4X large. When it comes down, a C4X large with a 16 gig RAM, let's say, when it comes down to 25 cents per hour, spin a new spot instance and give it to me. You can request for it. And then you have to configure that in such a way that, okay, once the instance is available, what do you want to do it? Maybe you want to run a simple batch job to do it. So let's say you are doing some genome calculations or um, multi-layered family hierarchy. You want to run it. You want to run a high compute machine for a quick 2 hours. Go for spot instances. Bid your price. Once it comes to that price, it will be available. Maybe it's available at 2 a.m. in the midnight. Automate your process. So once it is up, what do you want to do? Okay, provision in EC2 instance, run your code for the entire 2 hours, store it somewhere, and then it will automatically be taken away. Once the price drops, once the price goes up, someone else bids for it, it will be taken out. So you have to architect for that. You have to be able to architect for that. So for the interruption, so once my spot instance is taken out, so what do I want to do it? Once I'm given spot instance is given back, okay? You want to probably store everything out there in memory on RAM, store it out there to an external hard disk, and then bring it back as soon as a spot instance is available. Does it make sense? So you want to architect for that. Keep that in mind. So spot instances can be taken out. In the middle of the process, they could be interrupted because someone else bid for high price. So to avoid those interruptions, there is a concept called spot block. You can request for a block. Let's say you can request for a spot block from up to 1 hour to 6 hours. You'll be charged at the fixed price. And then let's say you have a scheduled job that sort of runs for 5.5 hours. Go for the spot block of 6 hours, bid for it. Once the appropriate instance is available to you, your code will be run, your batch job will be run for 6 hours, and you're done. And spot instances can be up to 90% cheaper sometimes. It's all bidding, right? So based on how other millions of users are doing within the data center, if there are a lot of computing resources that are wasteful, then they'll reduce the price. You could get it for much cheaper. So keep that in mind. The other one is the reserved instances. If you have a study capacity of, study load and study capacity, typically I need about 25 EC2 instances. Then with the reserved instances is that you are paying upfront. You could pay, you are signing the contract with EC2 for up to 3 years, saying that, hey, I want this, I need at least 25 T2 EC2 instances. Then I'll pay you upfront for all 3 years. That cheap if you are paying upfront for the whole 3 years. Or you could say that I'll pay for 1 year, or I'll pay monthly, but you are signing the contract. Once you sign the contract, pretty much you're booked for the entire period of up to 36 months. That's called reserved instance. But what you're gaining is much cheaper price. And you're guaranteed to have the resources. Those are yours. So those are about pricing options. Going into the exam, understand that reserved instance concept, spot instance, and on-demand. Okay, now we talked about these EC2 instances, and we talked about availability zones and all. Now let's talk about the load balancing concept. So you have your EC2 instances in your availability zones. Let's say you have cluster of web servers. Let's say there are 3 web servers. Traffic from outside, traffic from internet, they don't want to go into the EC2 instance directly, right? Because what if that EC2 instance is down? That's why you want to balance it by putting a service called load balancer. So the load balancer will act as a front gate or a front door for all the requests coming in. And then they continuously do the health check. Let's say there are 3 EC2 instances in my availability zone A and 3 more in availability zone B. And I'll continuously monitor the health of it. You can configure the health checks there. What's your definition of health? You can define that. I'll continuously monitor it. As soon as I find out that somebody is out of business, out of service, someone is not healthy anymore, then I'll take him out of the pool. And then I will not send the request to that particular guy anymore. I will only send it to the remaining 5. And your load balancer will send it to EC2 instances across the availability zones, like exactly like in this picture. So that is called load balancer. And you need to understand that there are three kinds of load balancers there. One is called application load balancer. Application load balancer sits at the layer 7 in the network layers. So this guy knows about what protocol. This guy knows what is a HTTP and HTTP headers, everything. It's an intelligent load balancer. That's the typical load balancer. We use it for all practical purposes, for all your websites and the APIs and mobile backends, IoT backends, all of that. You may want to use application load balancer. There is a second type called network load balancer. Network load balancer acts at the layer 4 level. It only knows two things: your IP address and the port. But it can process the millions of requests per second. It's a highly scalable. It's for the network computing and all. So that's relatively new. It's been there a few years, but it's a relatively new network load balancer. And there is a third one called classic load balancer. Classic load balancer is a previous generation load balancer. It's a disgrace to use the classic load balancer. But let's say you already have a web application in your own data center right now that happens to be a stateful, okay, that has a sticky session. Sticky session meaning once I'm logged into one server, it gives me a session ID, and then your load balancer will look at continuously. I'll send my session ID in the form of cookies, and the load balancer will look at it. Okay, last time you spoke to web server 1. Okay, let me send you to web server 1 because that guy knows the context of it. So that's called session stickiness or session affinity in the architecture, typical architecture where it's a general term, nothing to do with AWS, right? So if you happen to have something like that already within your data center, if you want to bring it onto AWS, then you want to use classic load balancer because classic load balancer supports that. So especially understand that going into the exam. So if you have a scenario-based question out there saying, hey, I have this existing legacy application that happens to be stateful, that's managed in my own data center right now, and it has a session affinity, a session stickiness, and I wanted to bring it onto the cloud, what load balancer should I use? That's a classic. It's a previous generation load balancer. But all of you are now, if you're building any API right now, you know that as architecturally, it's not a good practice to go for stateful. You want to make them stateless. You want to architect them to be completely stateless so that you don't have a session stickiness, a session affinity. You can send it to, my first request can go to the server 1 and the second request can go to the server 100. Everything is same. It's completely stateless. But going into the exam, understand that. Okay, so within the broad range of EC2, you have this concept of security groups. Well, security groups, they act as policemen to your EC2 instances. They sit right in front of your EC2 instances, and you can put the rules there. Who can talk to who. Let's say I want to allow port 80. Let's say I have a web servers, I have a cluster of web servers, and web servers, they have to be in DMZ. They have to take the internet traffic from outside, from the world. So they have to, they listen on port 80 and they take traffic from outside. So in security groups, you can say that, port 80 is open for the internet. And if you go to your, that's the case with your web servers, right? Now let's go to your app servers and database servers. You do not want your database port to be open to the world. No, your database should only be should only be accessible to your app servers. Let's say you have a 3-tier architecture. You have the web server, you have app server, and then database servers. So you want to protect your application servers in such a way that put your security group rule that this port here, whatever, let's say 8080 Tomcat servers here in the application servers. So this 8080 port to be open only to the web servers. So only web servers can talk to it. And go to, let's say, 1521 is Oracle port. My 1521 is open only to my app servers. So put those security groups, rules in the security groups, and understand that security groups are at the instance level. Later on, I'll talk about some other concept, and I'll compare and contrast. But understand that these are virtual firewalls at the EC2 instance level, and one EC2 instance can have multiple security groups. So what it does is, before it allows the traffic, it will look at all the rules together in a comprehensively, and then say, okay, you are allowed, or you're denied. You cannot deny a specific IPR port using security groups. In security groups, you can only put allow rules. You cannot put any deny rules. And then you can attach multiple security groups. And the security groups are stateful. Understand that word stateful means if you open a port 80 for somebody to come in, so somebody sends a request and then you took that request on port 80. Now you need to, meaning the network packet came in and the response will automatically go out. You don't have to do anything. There are again inbound and outbound rules in a security group. It doesn't matter what the outbound rules are, the packet will go out. That is what stateful means. Meaning, once I allow the traffic in, the response will be given out. You don't have to explicitly mention that. Later on, we'll talk about another contrasting service or concept, and those are stateless. Make sense? These are virtual firewalls. It's a security concept. Again, you have to pay particular attention and then protect your ports. Going into the exam, all these points are important. Okay, now let's talk about all the cloud buzzwords. Yes, cloud has elasticity. Cloud can scale infinitely, right? So it can scale up or scale out and scale in. We have heard these buzzwords, right? So how is this possible? With AWS, there is a concept called auto scaling group. So you have this concept of availability zones, and you have multiple availability zones, and you have group in the front gate, and you have your EC2 instances that are distributed across multiple availability zones. And this, you can write your policies in such a way that, let's say, you always need 5 EC2 instances all the time to be able to serve your business. You can do that. You can define your auto scaling group. It will continuously do the health check. Once it realizes that an EC2 instance is unhealthy, it will terminate it, take it out, and then it will create a new instance and put it back. What? It can create a new instance? Yes. How can it create a new instance? Well, there is a concept called Amazon Machine Image. So with all of your appropriate EC2 instance types, appropriate storage, and all of your source code deployed, everything together, you create a machine image, and then auto scaling group will use that machine image, quickly spin up a new EC2 instance and put it into the pool, so that your load balancer will start sending the request to it. It's a beautiful concept. And that's one of the examples, right? Meaning, if you know that I need a fixed number of EC2 instances all the time, that's one way to skin it. But the other one is, hey, I want to utilize the elasticity of the cloud. Okay, let's start with 2 EC2 instances. But as, let's say, Black Friday, Black Friday is the best example. Let's say, simple, Micro Center. There's a store here called Micro Center. Let's say they typically use 2 EC2 instances, but on Black Friday night, they might need 1,000 EC2 instances. The entire Michigan will be on that website. Okay. So, but I don't want to keep adding it. So what auto scaling group does it is that you can write a policy in such a way that, hey, I know that each EC2 instance can take up to 30 concurrent requests. As soon as the 31st guy come in, I write my policy in such a way that 31st guy come in, and then I'll create a new EC2 instance and put it to the pool. So the next guy will take, let's say there are 60 concurrent requests are filled. Okay, 61st guy come in. Okay, one more request. It will automatically create the EC2 instances, deploy your code, because you have your completely deployed golden image out there called Amazon Machine Image. It will use that Amazon Machine Image, create the EC2 instance, meaning provision it, and add it to the pool. They'll start taking the requests. So that's about the auto scaling group. So it can maintain the number of instances, your desired capacity, or it can scale in or out. Okay. And again, as the number of requests reduces, okay, it can scale in also. It can terminate the unused instances and reduce your cost. You know, right after Black Friday, after your peak season is gone, then pretty much you come back to your regular usage. Of course, you can schedule it, but you don't need to schedule it. It's if you don't know your usage trends are, don't worry. Define your auto scaling group policy, and it will take care of it. Okay, and it can be number of requests, or it can be based on your CPU cycle. Let's say if my CPU goes above 80%, then I want to kick off my auto scaling group policy. It will automatically scale out and scale in. So understand that, and scale out and scale in based on triggers. You can scale across all the availability zones, absolutely. And you always want to do it based on being an architect, always want to, when you scale it, please scale it across all the availability zones. Why do I want to do that? Well, as an architect, you always want to be able to answer it. If my availability zone is down for whatever the reason, am I still in the business?
Venkat, quick question.
Yes.
When you scale out, right, like, so that load balancer, if it creates a new IP for that, is load balancer will automatically update?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So the reason because is that load balancer has no idea. Load balancer. So when you create this auto scaling group, your load balancer only knows something called target group. Okay. The newly created EC2 instance will be added to the target group. And the load balancer, all it knows that I will forward my request to this target group. I don't care how.
Okay. The pool members will be updated.
Exactly. Okay, so going into the exam, another kind of a cryptic or another important aspect. I will definitely not be able to cover it, but please read that. The termination policy. When you scale in, it will terminate the EC2 instances when you don't need it, right? Obviously, you want that's the natural behavior, and you want that to be like that. Okay, and there is a concept called protecting from scale in. You can have your EC2 instances to be protected from scale in, meaning they will not be terminated. So when termination happens, what all can AWS do? You know, do you want to terminate the first EC2 instance that was created? Do you want that to be terminated? Or the latest one, do you want that to be terminated? So there are policies around that. And there is something called default termination policy. Understand that going into the exam, you will get at least one question on that. And then please be prepared to answer these questions. How to keep availability SLAs with minimum cost. So you will get scenario-based questions. Okay, to do my business smoothly, at any point, I need 6 EC2 instances. And in my region, I have 5 availability zones. Okay, and I want to, let's say in my region, I have 6 availability zones. Yeah. And then I need to be able to survive 2 availability zones being down. So even though 2 availability zones are down, I do not want my business to be affected. But I want to minimize the cost as much as possible. So one option is probably put 6 in each availability zones, right? It doesn't make sense to put 6 in each. So probably start with 1 each in all 6 availability zones, try to distribute it. Okay, what's happening now? If 2 availability zones are down, then you are left with 4 availability zones, and you have 1 EC2 instance in each one of them. So you only have 4. But to have my business, up and running, I need 6 EC2 instances. So how will I be able to design that? So maybe I need 2 in each. Then even if I, 2 availability zones are down, now I have 4. 4 times 2 or 8. So I'm paying for 8. Make sense? Think about it. Or maybe you can distribute 3 of them in 1, 3 of them in 2. So try to answer that kind of questions, guaranteed. Okay, that's about, at the high level, that's about, EC2. So any questions at this point?
One more question. You said the availability is across the regions. Right? Sorry, the load balancer will be across the regions, right? Like, so when auto scaling happens, if it scales out in the multiple regions, then load balancer will be updated across regions also.
So most of these services are per region. Okay. These actually, when you say the availability, these are across all the availability zones within a region. Okay. So if you want to go across the regions, there is something else. You have to use a different, DNS service called Route 53. There you have to put your routing policies.
It's like GTM.
GTM. What's that?
Is it like a global traffic manager kind of?
Oh, yes, exactly. Okay. So not doing too good with the time, I think, but we'll see how long. Is the space okay, or do you want me to, go faster? Any feedback at this point?
I think this is great, Venkat.
Yep. It's good.
Okay. Because I have a lot of content, but there's no point in rushing and then, cover this much without you having to understand anything. So, okay, just wanted to get it. Thank you.
Do you have like maybe any questions for people? Yeah, you wanted to just like check like maybe everybody's getting it. You wanted to ask some questions like a quiz.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. So what do you guys think? Let's. It's been 1 hour almost, right? So let's pause for a couple of minutes and then let's make it conversational.
Venkat, let me ask a couple of questions before we get
sure.
We have this. My name is Arun, by the way. We have this complaint from our management, like we are paying a lot for our cloud services infrastructure. We are paying like for every 2 months, it's almost $1 million.
Hello.
I'm sure they are doing so many things which I'm sure they are not doing so many things which they are.
Sorry, Arun, are you breaking only to me or? Hello.
I think we are able to hear.
You guys hear me better?
Can you try?
Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we are constantly getting this complaint from our management, like we are paying for every 2 months like $1 million for the cloud services infrastructure. So I know you spoke about auto scaling. I'm sure we are doing that, but I would love to know some more tips from you, like an architecture perspective. These are the things you should be checking.
So, yep. Oh, definitely. So
we don't have to talk in detail now, but
yeah. Actually, that's
it's not a small topic.
A specific question.
Exactly.
I can take it offline. You may want to think about some of them. If your traditional architecture, if you take it as is to the cloud, you don't want to do that. So you have to think about things like serverless. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So especially if you have a big Oracle machine out there, that's it's like having a Ferrari in your garage. If you really you bought Ferrari but it's in garage, it's not doing anything, then it's no fun. So
exactly.
Probably
so, I would like to know.
Yeah, and but you have to. Some of them has to be re-architected.
Sure.
Okay. So instead of using traditional RDS, you may want to go with the non-relational databases.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to take up all the time.
Yeah. It's a specific one. Absolutely.
When you have some set of points, like I would like to know in detail.
Definitely.
So that would be really helpful. And a couple of other questions. So there is a topic you mentioned, sharing the VM, guest OS 1, user 1, guest user 2, guest user 3. Can a couple of people log in at the same time and use at the same time, or it has to be?
Absolutely. It's a virtual machine. You are slicing your physical machine into multiple virtual machines. That's all it is.
Got it. Okay.
You can actually do it. You can buy your VMware and make your laptop into multiple virtual machines. You can absolutely do it. So create your virtual box or create your VMware, install it. After that, absolutely, you install Linux on one virtual machine. Install completely different flavor of Linux or Unix, different ones, and then everybody thinks that it's my physical machine, but it's not. It's a multi-tenant.
Okay, perfect. Only one VM can be also split into like 3 VMs as if they are behaving.
One physical machine can be broken into multiple virtual machines.
Got it. Okay. Do we have to pay for each and every virtual machine, or do we going to be paying for one machine because we are splitting up into 3 virtual machines?
See, Amazon will buy this big, massive physical servers, right? One physical server. Probably there are some best practices around that, which we don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
They call it the physical CPUs, right? Let's say I have a physical machine with 256 gig RAM and let's say 16 cores. So 16 cores, I will divide that in 16 times 4. Let's say 64. They call it vCPUs, virtual CPUs. Now I have 64 virtual CPUs. Now I have one physical machine. If you want a I have one physical machine now with the 64 virtual CPUs. Do you want a virtual machine with one vCPU? Absolutely, take it. And let's say Srinivas wants one virtual machine with the 4 vCPUs. Go take it. Everybody is taking
because we are
small
sharing the hard.
You got it.
Okay. And one last question. So we spoke about the spot instances. So for example, I got a spot instance for 2 hours and somebody bid it more. Does my job in between get interrupted?
Absolutely. If it's not a spot block, it will get interrupted and we have to architect it for that. So what exactly do you want to do it? Do you want to probably, when a spot instance gets interrupted, maybe you want to hibernate it so that all the state that is stored in RAM, you're putting it away. And then once you bring it back, you don't want to reboot it. Whenever an instance is given, bring it back. And again, you have your machine there after a couple of hours.
So if we are using spot instances, we have to architect in a way where we're going to be
exactly
at any time. It can start anytime.
Exactly.
If we don't want uninterrupted, we have to go with the other option you mentioned.
The spot block, you can go for that. Block. But that's again from 1 hour to 6 hours. It's a maximum of 6 hours. These are very specific use cases, right?
Yep. Sounds great. Thank you, Venkat.
Yep. Any other thoughts, comments? Okay. So if not, then we can proceed. I'm hoping you're all getting something out of it for your time. So as long as you give me that confidence, then
definitely. This is really great, and I love the way you are taking it because you are not taking it. You are making sure everyone is getting the point. So I love the way you are teaching it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Even I'm getting a lot of value. I'm not into Amazon, but I'm getting all the points. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you.
Same thing here. Like I'm not in Amazon, but I know these terminologies, but you're giving more clarity. Now I feel like I'm in a great class.
these concepts, most of these concepts the names could be different, but the concepts are same across all the public cloud providers. Same
exactly.
Azure,
because I'm from Azure.
Exactly.
I'm from Azure. I work on Azure from morning to evening. Like it's always, but it's no different. I can the points you are mentioning.
Exactly. Wonderful. Okay, so let's proceed with another big service here, and one of the oldest services out there called S3, Simple Storage Service. It's nothing but it's having a virtual hard disk in the cloud. This is like your Dropbox. This is like your Amazon Drive. Yeah, Amazon Drive actually built on S3 anyway. And your Dropbox, if I'm not wrong, Dropbox guy, he used S3 as a backend, and he provided a nice little UI, and he wrote actually, he coded for himself. So he didn't want to take his USB drives every day to school. So what he built is, using this S3 service, put a nice UI there, and then he was able to upload and download the files. S3 is nothing but that. Okay, but it's one of the most robust storage services on the earth. So a lot of people, even some of the other cloud providers out there, they may compete with Amazon on other aspects, but when it comes to S3, they will use it. There's a lot of support for that. So what is S3? So this is earlier we talked about block store. Block store is where you can install your operating system, install your databases and all. But this is an object store though. Object store is like you can store your pictures, you can store your videos like this. Okay, this is like having your own drive, cloud drive essentially. So most robust object storage service on the cloud. Other public cloud providers also use S3 as their storage service, yes. And then the beauty is that it provides that 11 nines durability. What does it mean? It provides the durability of 99.99999. There are 9 nines after dot. So it's called 11 nines durability, meaning the reason it's able to, it boasts that 11 nines durability is because when you upload a picture into S3, it will redundantly copy it across multiple physical data centers within a region, of course. Okay, it will store in multiple availability zones, it doesn't tell you exactly how many, but it's greater than or equal to 3. That's what they say. So anyways, the point is it will redundantly copy it across. And it maintains that 11 nines durability, meaning it's probably 1 in 10 billion or 100 billion objects, one could be lost. But even that's not possible with this one. Okay, it maintains that. So you can never ever beat that. So you can use S3 for various use cases. Your a lot of images, your bank statements, your web applications, absolutely your mobile applications. You can store a lot of data there. You can store your logs there. You can store your pictures there. You can store your statements there. And there is something called lifecycle policy. Using the beautiful lifecycle concept, we'll talk about it. You'll be able to move from one place to another. I'll talk about use cases. So these objects are stored in something called bucket, S3 bucket. It's like a regular bucket. That's where you can store your objects. Bucket is like a folder where you dump your files. Okay. So what you have to do if you want to play with S3 is you have to create a bucket in a specific region. So it's some people get confused S3 as a global service. I'll talk about why they get confused, but it is when you create a bucket, you are creating a bucket within a specific region. Okay. And they must be unique across all the AWS accounts in the world. So let's say I try a test bucket name. Test bucket name must have been taken, decades back. So I have my own, I have my buckets, like javavenkat.com. I own that for 2 decades, right? So I have my own bucket. Nextsteptraining.com, I own that bucket. So you can't get the same bucket. You can't create the same bucket because the bucket names are unique across the globe, across all the AWS accounts, across all the regions. Okay. So, and the beauty is that this is they architected it in such a way that they provided REST APIs to interact with your objects. Okay, it's a very secured REST APIs. Pretty much that's what they use it in their management console in your browser. There are a couple of ways to interact with this S3, but under the hood, if you really look at it, the robust REST APIs is what makes this S3 that beautiful. Okay, so understand that. And also when you create a bucket, So this is the kind of DNS name it's already giving it to you. So see this one here, your region name, let's say US East 1, Northern Virginia, then US-East-1 is the region ID that they use it. For Ohio, US-East-2. So your region name .amazonaws.com / and your bucket name goes there. And then if you want to go for the specific object, let's say I have an object called index.html or my venkat.jpg, I'll go with that. So that's the kind of URL you will get. It's a very secure. I'll talk about the security, but it's S3 is an amazing service. Okay, going into the exam, you may want to understand a couple of these aspects. Minimum size of an object is 0 bytes. You know, some of these sound silly to me in the exam. They ask you, is it 0 byte or 1 byte? Well, I feel it's silly. You know, you can always Google that. That doesn't make you think really as an architect, right? It's but exam is exam, you know. It's understand that. And so essentially, what it means is you can upload an empty file, 0 byte file into S3. It allows you that. And then the maximum size of an object is 5 terabytes. So S3 is confused as a global service because of the bucket name being unique across the globe, across all the AWS accounts. But no, when you create a bucket, you are creating in a specific region. I want you to understand that. Okay, so S3 has this concept called storage classes. There are multiple storage classes. Depends on your use case, you may want to use the appropriate storage. Let's say I want to store my tax documents. I'm a personal user. I want to store my tax documents. For compliance reasons, IRS can come back to me anytime within 7 years, right? So I want to store all of my tax documents. So I probably don't need it anytime soon. And it's very infrequently accessed one. I'm keeping it just as an archival reasons. If IRS comes back to me for any reason, you know, as long as I'll be able to retrieve it within 12 hours, it's okay. Then I can put it in archive and then I'll save a lot of money there. But let's say I want to store my, I work for Bank of America and I want to store my my customers' statements out there. So probably once the current statements, they're frequently accessed, they're highly frequently accessed. As soon as I need it in milliseconds. Then I want to store it in a certain storage class. So there are multiple storage class. The first one is called S3 standard. So S3 standard is the most expensive one. It's the most obvious one. You will be able to pull this in milliseconds. If you really need it retrieval within milliseconds, and if you always use it so frequently, then go for S3 standard. You'll be paying little bit more, but it's a good idea. And then there is something else called intelligent tiering. So it uses the machine learning and the AI to see what's the best tier it has to go into. Is it S3 standard based on the usage statistics? Or should I go with the next one called S3 standard infrequently access? IA stands for infrequently access. So in infrequently access, what it means is when I need it in milliseconds, but I do not need it. I use it very infrequently. In that case, go for S3 standard IA. So then you'll have to pay for the retrieval fees for standard IA, but you're paying less for the storage compared to your standard and intelligent tiering. So intelligent tiering is an AI engine that decides between S3 standard and S3 standard IA based on your usage patterns. And the fourth one is one zone IA. That will be stored, meaning your object, when you store your photo in one zone IA, again, IA stands for infrequently accessed. When you store it in one zone, it will be stored in only one availability zones. That's what it means. But redundantly copies within one availability zones, it will copy redundantly. So it will still give you the 11 nines durability, but availability is not guaranteed. Meaning if one availability zone is down for whatever the reason, then you may not get that until until that availability zone is back up. So things like, let's say let's say, so when do you want to go for this one zone IA? Well, if you are looking for, yesterday I was talking to somebody and saying that, hey, you have your high resolution images, you are putting it in intelligent hearing or standard IA, okay? But you want to create the appropriate thumbnails out there. The thumbnails are, small pictures. Those size will be about a couple of KBs, right? You will be able to create those thumbnails from the original service at any time. Even if you lose them, not a big deal. Because if your availability zone is down, you could lose it for some time. So in that case, you'll be able to recreate it. All the recreatable stuff go for one zone IA. It's very, very cheap. Of course, compared to standard, it goes in the direction. The pricing goes in the direction. S3 standard being the most expensive one, and one zone IA being the least one. Least one meaning it's not yet, but I'll talk about the couple more options for the archival reasons. They're called S3 Glacier and S3 Glacier Deep Archive. These are for archival reasons only, meaning you are storing it as an archival for fraction of the price compared to your S3 standard. But when you need it, it could take up to minutes, if not hours. S3 Glacier could go up to hour, 2 hours. And the S3 Glacier Deep Archive being the cheapest solution out there for all the archival regions. But when you need it, you have to allow AWS for up to 12 hours. It will give you within 12 hours those objects. Like your tax documents. If IRS comes back ever, then you can go to Glacier Deep Archive and it's available after 12 hours. After 12 hours, it's readily available for you to view it. It's a very cheap option. Being an architect, you have to be cognizant of your cost. Okay. And for the exam, absolutely, you have to know this in and out. Expect scenario questions and availability percentage questions too. So there is clearly there is a table out there. What's the availability? What availability this is designed for? So you are unfortunately or fortunately, you are expected to remember that or memorize that. So go for it. That's about the storage classes. And then, yes, remember that all storage classes, including one zone IA, gives you 11 nines durability. One zone IA is used for non-critical and easily reproducible objects. If you see in the exam, if I'm using a non-critical data, I want to reduce some cost, and then I can reproduce it anytime if it's down for a couple of hours. I can reproduce it anytime because I have the original copy somewhere. Then what's the option? One zone IA, because that's cheaper. And the cheapest archival storage class is Glacier Deep Archive, but it will take up to 12 hours for you to give back. Okay, so I talked about this REST interface, and the beauty of S3 is lies in that the robustness of the whole REST APIs. So, but you don't have to go down to that level and then use the REST APIs. So it doesn't make sense if I have to log into AWS Management Console and upload my photos. I want to be able to, I'm using S3 for my corporate solution. So I have to be able to code it. I'm a .NET guy, I'm a C# developer, and I need to be able to code it using C# and interact with S3. Absolutely, you can do it. So 3 ways that you can interact with these S3 objects. But under the hood, the robustness is given by these REST APIs. One is Management Console, which is your browser. You are logging in as a human being if you have something to deal with it. This is where you'll specify some security concepts, or you can upload the objects. You can upload your photos, videos, and all. If you want to do that, go do it. Or there is another one. There is a command line interface, AWS CLI. It's a small piece of software that you'll install it on your machine, and you'll interact with S3. You can dump the entire hard disk into S3 using a couple of simple CLI commands. Well, I don't want to do that also. I want my Java application when a document is uploaded by my customer in Singapore. Okay, I want this to be automatically copied into one of the S3 buckets. How do I do that? That's where you will have to use this called SDK. So they have, AWS provides SDKs for a lot of programming languages. You have for Java, .NET, Python, Ruby. Okay, use those SDKs. You can simply use it. It's very simple. So, but under the hood, they all use the same robust REST APIs. Going into the exam, please understand this concept deeply. And forget about the exam for a second. I know I keep mentioning because you guys, you're all thinking about the exam, but go play with it. Please go play with it. Understand the beauty of it. Think always, even if you're not an architect, don't worry about it. Wear an architect hat. How can an architect think? Okay, so different aspects of it. Okay, so another cool thing about S3 is that you will be able to build your static website using S3. So I'll give you a simple tip here. A lot of these Hollywood movies, when they release the movies, they go for almost every Hollywood movie will have a website, right? So those are static websites. There is no dynamism there. Okay, they throw in some couple of trailers there and then cast information and other things. You can safely create an S3 bucket for that. Okay, and then later on we'll talk about, probably sometime next week, we'll talk about Route 53. So that's where you'll get your vanity URL for your movie and then have it routed to your S3. And no web servers, nothing out there. Dump in your HTML, images, CSS files, JavaScript files, all of them dump there. And your S3 will give you a website with a couple of clicks out there. And then you can, you'll be able to build a static website that can scale infinitely. Any millions of requests per minute, per hour, it doesn't matter. It can infinitely scale. And not having a single server, purely with simple S3. But as long as your requirement is a static website, you can use it. So yep, you can use S3 bucket as static website hosting, infinitely scalable without worrying about any server at all. Easiest way to get your static website up and running. And for the exam, you are expected to know this. So when you create a static website, this is how your website name looks. Let's say your bucket name. Bucket name, mine, let's say have a real bucket, javavenkat.com. So http://javavenkat.com, a bucket name .s3-website whatever the region that bucket is in, .amazonaws.com. It will give you that website. Of course, you don't want that website. You want a vanity URL, something like ironman2.com. That's where your DNS service come into picture, your Route 53 come into picture, and then have that Route 53 alias to this one. That's all. Pretty straightforward, right? So infinitely scalable static website using S3 bucket. Beautiful way of building it. Okay, let's talk about another concept in S3 called versioning. Well, look at this one. I have let's say one photo here, like photo.gif. It's the same photo. So I keep uploading the same photo, multiple versions of it, and I want to store all of them for whatever the business use case, right? Like your source code repository, you always want to maintain your versioning. If you happen to have that kind of use case, S3 provides versioning. So when versioning is enabled, you can retrieve and restore every version of every object. So once you enable it at the bucket level, all the objects will get versioned. So if you upload a same object with the same key, meaning same file name, right? Index.html, if I upload another index.html, it will keep the old one in the versioning area and then overwrites the latest one. But if you need at any point, I need the previous version for comparison, you'll be able to get it. But as an architect, you always have to think about the price there. you'll be paying price for both of them. So when you do the same, when you upload the same object, it automatically generates a unique version ID. That's how it remembers it. When version object is deleted, it is not permanently deleted. It is rather marked for deletion, but it still maintains it in underlying data store. And then be cognizant of cost with versioning, because you're paying for, if you're, let's say picture, the same picture probably, with changes, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? But let's say your index.html, if you happen to have changed it 5 times, then you're paying it for times 5. Understand that. And you expect some scenario-based questions on that. Being an architect, cognizant of the cost. Okay. There is another concept here called cross-region replication. So again, as I told you, bucket is region specific, but as soon as an object is, I have a requirement where a lot of my clients are in the other side of the globe, let's say in Sydney or Singapore, okay? As soon as an object is uploaded here in my Ohio region, I want this to be copied to the other side of the globe. That's called cross-region replication. So I'll create a destination bucket there. When I upload a file, it automatically gets copied from source to destination. It's called cross-region replication. And going into the exam, the most important point is, if you want cross-region replication, versioning must be enabled. Only then you'll be able to do it. And when you upload an object into your source bucket, automatically, but it's asynchronous. It's behind the scenes. It does that asynchronous replication to destination. And the destination bucket, the beauty is that you can own a source bucket, and the destination bucket can be owned by a completely different account. Okay. For compliance reasons, that's one of the best use cases for cross-region replications. Even though Amazon maintains it at least in 3 different locations out there, but for compliance reasons, if you need to maintain that somewhere else in Europe, for example, okay, you want to have a copy in Europe, that's your compliance rules, then go for cross-region replication. So the use cases are compliance reasons, and then minimize the latency for customers in a different geographical area. So I have a lot of users in Singapore. Then I better set up my cross-region replication there. And a lot of my users who upload the data, they happen to be in this Midwest area. So they upload it. Behind the scenes, it gets copied over to Singapore bucket, my destination bucket that happens to be in Singapore. And then all those people, they will access it. Very less latency. Okay. So you're wondering how secure is this one? Let's talk about S3 security briefly. So I talked about, early on, I talked about this concept of IAM policy. The same policy is applicable. You can do it at the IAM level policies, or at the bucket level, you can create the bucket policies. Again, it's the same JSON object, but you can create a bucket policy and say, define the rules for the entire bucket, who can and cannot access. And then if you have a specific reasons, these objects, this specific object can only be get by HTTP GET can be called only by these guys. Use this object level access control list. You can do it object level. Looking at, okay. And then you have at the bucket level, you have at the object level, and then you will be able to look at using this something called server access logs. You will be able to look at the complete audit trail of who access to what. And then once you put the objects in S3, you can configure encryption at rest. This is another important aspect from the exam perspective. Encryption at rest is possible. And then multiple types of encryptions is supported. So for all the other people who are only looking for the high level stuff, this may not be needed, but all the people who are really looking for the exam, encryption types is one of the absolute must in the exam. S3 encryption types. There are multiple ways you can encrypt it, the S3 objects. One is called server-side encryption, S3, SSC-S3. That's what they use in the exam also, by the way. server-side encryption S3, meaning S3 handles everything. You don't have to manage the key or anything. What key it uses to encrypt with, you don't have to worry about it. S3 handles everything. But you can also do a server-side encryption with something else, another AWS service called key management service. With key management service, there is a more options there. You can bring your own key content. Okay. And then you can create your own customer master key and other things. But it's another powerful way of doing it called KMS. You can use that. Or I don't want to use Amazon's keys at all. Mine is extremely sensitive data, and I don't trust Amazon at all. So what I will do is, when I call these REST endpoints, right, I will do a HTTP put, and I will provide my own key in my REST endpoints. This is my plain text data, but this is my key. So what it does is, it will encrypt it using the key that you provided and put it into the hard disk. When you do a HTTP GET on that object, it doesn't know how to decrypt back, because it doesn't maintain any key. If it's S3, it knows how to decrypt it. Even if it's KMS, it knows how to do it. But with customer provided, no, you have to provide the key. Can you decrypt it with this key? And then give me the plain text object back. That's how you ask. That's called SSE-C, customer provided key. And the last option is, I don't want to use server-side encryption. I want to use client-side encryption. I know what I'm doing precisely. So I will encrypt with my own key in my own data center, in my own Java code. I'll do that. But once all that encrypted object, that I will put it in S3. That's a client-side encryption. Going into the exam, please understand this fully. Okay, so that's up to S3, guys. I think it's a 6:35, and I have RDS and VPC, and I have one more CloudFront, but it's not fair because those are pretty deep topics also. That would take alone, another hour and a half easily. So I think, Vamsi, that this is what I could do. I mean, I know we couldn't plan accordingly, but this is precisely, I think it's a fair to leave it at that. What do you guys say?
Absolutely. I think maybe we can take next 10-15 minutes for any open questions until this point, and maybe next Sunday we can have the remaining if you're available, Venkat.
Yep, absolutely. I'll do that.
Awesome. So let's open up for maybe you can unmute yourself.
Yep.
For any open.
Let's make it as conversational as possible. So totally fine.
We got about 22 people in the call. Definitely a lot of questions, a lot of insights in the last 90 minutes.
Was it okay? Was it useful?
Absolutely.
Who do you think it's, what do you think, especially people preparing for the certification, right? You guys are pretty serious about it. Did you pick up any points? Let's start with that.
Venkat, I'm going to start. This is Nara. I've been preparing for AWS certifications, and simple comment and single comment. I'm going to use these notes for my final examinations. I'm not going to use my notes what I had written. This is.
Thank you. Thanks for the kind words.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, it is dense enough, and also refresh. We can refresh before exam also, because Vamshi is recording it. So yeah. Thank you, Vamshi.
I think it gave a good in-depth depth overview. So we wanted something like we go through the AWS coaching certification. They all go deep for every topic, right? This gave overview in 1.5 hours, multiple things that we covered to a level where we can actually, okay, this is where. So I think that's a good overview. Much deeper.
Venkat, this is Arun.
You feel it. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, real quick on the app engine, right, or the EC2 instance. So once we create our VM, then you have whatever OS that you pick, like equivalent to Google has its app engine, right? Like once you have your app deployed, does it present any, like for caching and then encryption within basically encryption within the object stored within JVM? Does it do any of that? Like, are the services available right now?
Okay, that's a good question. So like how S3 objects are encrypted at rest, the entire EBS volume can be encrypted at rest. When you create that EC2 instance, you will attach the EBS volume to that, right? You will say that I want this 8 gig 8 gig EBS volume to be attached to my EC2 T2 micro instance. At that time, there is a checkbox there, simple, EBS encryption I wanted. Behind the scenes, it uses the KMS, and it automatically creates a data key. KMS, key management service, AWS one, beautifully takes care of it automatically. And at rest, you have your complete EBS volume encrypted. But that's about the encryption. Are you clear on that, Arun? Because I wanted to correct you on something else, because you compared and contrasted what's that GCP Google App Engine. That's not exactly apple to apple. So I'll correct you there. But if you got clarity on encryption, I'll attack that.
Yep, I'm good on the encryption.
Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about the Google Cloud Platform has this concept called Google App Engine, GAE. It's one of the oldest. I played with GAE probably back in 2000, 9 and 10, when they first released it. I deployed my first servlet instance there. Okay, I was working for a financial institution at the time. So that is slightly different. That one is called platform as a service. It's not infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service, you have to worry about the physical machine, virtual machine and all. But with the Google App Engine, it's being platform as a service. You just write a piece of code according to the standards that they provided, upload your piece of code, and it will infinitely scale without you having to worry about how. No auto scaling group, nothing. That's more serverless. And then Amazon has a similar concept. You have your Elastic Beanstalk, and you have your Lightsail, and there is a newer one called Lambdas. Okay, AWS Lambdas. That one, there is a newer breed, like how you have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. There is a new breed called, it's a small piece of function. You write a function that implements an interface, will infinitely scale. You don't care how. No servers, nothing.
Yep, serverless.
Yep, that's a serverless architecture. I was hoping probably that I'll cover that in the next one.
Okay, so basically the scaling part is auto-handled within GCP, right? Like you have your Docker image that gets built and pushed it across all the instances that it scales to.
You're talking about GAE, right? Google App Engine? Yeah, Google App Engine, it will automatically take care of it.
So, okay, that's fine.
Go ahead.
I'm not a web UI guy, so my terminology might not be accurate, but in order to serve the web content, right? For geolocation, you gave the example of Singapore and Columbus.
Right.
So there's something similar, but I don't recollect what it is. Like, in order to make sure you're serving the content from the closest geolocation.
Yep. So we will talk about that when I talk about Route 53. So Route 53 is Amazon's DNS service, and there you will be able to specify the appropriate routing, weighted routing policy, geolocation routing, latency-based routing policy. So you can define your routings in such a way that all the Singapore people, I want them to go into this this set of instances. You'll be able to do that, but that's at the global global service called Route 53. It's a DNS service.
Okay. Venkat, I just had a question about pricing in general. So how expensive are each instance, or if a company which is very small looking for a website to be built and it should be available across the globe, what are the key aspects in terms of price, and is that something you would be able to also give knowledge on? If not now, maybe I can connect with you later, but yeah.
So for things like that, so in all fairness, talking in 2020, talking about EC2 is not really a forward looking, it's little backward. Okay, if you are building a brand new API right now, I wouldn't pick this one. I would rather go with the serverless. Okay. If I have my I have my lambdas sitting out there, and put an API gateway in the front, and then I'll put my Angular application somewhere here, and then that way you are not paying for all the 24 hours. Okay, when you know that your 1-800 flowers is only going to be in service from 9 to 5, okay, and that too 100 customers across 9 to 5. Okay, you don't want to pay for 24 hours.
Correct.
Okay, when a request come in from internet, and then your API gateway will act as a front door. API gateway will take it and then kick off. If there is a Lambda function in a warm state, it will handle the request to Lambda. Otherwise, it will kick off a new Lambda and then pass that request. So that's how I would architect it.
Kind of auto scaling as well involved.
Exactly, but without you having to do anything. This auto scaling group is not that. It's that will scale automatically.
Okay, awesome.
It will scale without you having to worry about. It's a function as a service. Google that. That's the new way of architecting it.
Okay.
You don't bother anything.
Exactly, you don't bother about anything.
It's like executing a function, like you're giving it, that's it, done, right? Like, so it's all his responsibility of how you want to fan out.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you
Those
so much.
are best suited for event-driven architectures, but they are suited for your beautiful APIs also. Big thanks to this Amazon's API Gateway. API Gateway make that possible. The combination of API Gateway and Lambdas make that serverless possible. It's not just for event-driven architecture, but
Thank you, Venkat. It was a wonderful session. I think I can just book my AWS exam and write it right now.
No, but you are going so structurally and so peeled it everything, and it's really good. Like, I mean, consolidating into a summary is like that's what people need in short time. A lot of information.
Right.
Yep, no wonder you are a teacher. Just
question about Lambda, to go back, right? So I agree from a compute perspective, but then on the same Lambda function, if I have used any data store, right, and for that I have to pay always, right? Is it right?
Compute perspective, Lambdas are only compute services.
Right.
So you're talking about the database. You're talking about the database. Okay. Someone asked that question about the cost, Arun, I think, right? There also, we can go with the serverless database.
We do have serverless database.
Absolutely. Amazon DynamoDB. You go with that, and you are not paying for the 24 hours. If I spin my own Amazon RDS Oracle, I'm paying, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month, right? Even for a small miniature one. With the multi-AZ, I'm looking at few $1,000s a month.
Right. I mean, it makes sense. The data has to be persisted, right?
Absolutely. It is persisted, but you are not paying for that. All you do is, database magically is somewhere out there. You just create your table.
Okay.
Just create your table and put your documents out there. That's what they call it, right? In the NoSQL world, they call documents. You store your documents there without having to worry about where it's stored, how is it stored. What happens if one availability zone is down? Don't care how.
Okay. So whenever so whenever there is IO operations on the data store, then that's when they charge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a little more than that, though. They call it Amazon cycle. Okay, you have to pay for certain cycles all the time and certain on demand.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, but it's a lot cheaper for your initial stores, right? Something like Bharat was mentioning. I don't know how big database I need it. Okay. So in that case, DynamoDB is the best way to go.
Right, non-relational. So
absolutely.
Any serverless option for relational or just for non?
Okay. Any serverless option for relational, Amazon Aurora can be spun as a serverless. That is the only database that can be spun as serverless.
Got it.
Okay.
Awesome.
But it maintains actually 2 copies across three distinct data centers. So it maintains 6 copies.
Okay.
Aurora.
Got it.
I have that, we'll talk about it in the next class.
Sure.
Actually, I spent the small disappointment from my side is that I spent 4 or 5 hours on VPC alone, the fancy diagrams, and then I wanted to make it as interesting as possible, but we'll talk next.
Put it in YouTube, Venkat, like we will make it popular.
Thank you. Yep. We'll do that.
Because all your efforts shouldn't go waste. I mean, 4 or 5 hours is a lot of time for a single topic.
Exactly.
That is where the mastery is, right? So Venkat is not just trying to just throw something out there. He's been preparing like maybe for a long time to give us like maybe whatever like we saw. It's just like maybe tip of the iceberg. And also I highly recommend, this is my personal recommendation, if you wanted to get in depth of like maybe say about the architecture, about like maybe say what is happening inside of this AWS, after this certification, be in touch with Venkat. Venkat is like maybe a guy you can just like maybe expect anything, like he can drive you there and show you those possibilities. And also a couple of you already like preparing for this exam. I know you scheduled.
Sorry, Omsi, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I wanted to ask Anil one question. Anil may be the only one. Anil or Udaya.
Sure,
so,
yeah.
Because Anil may be new, I wanted to get some perspective from a new guys because he may not have had any exposure. Did I go too deep, too fast, or was it?
Udaya? Yes.
Hi, Udaya.
Yeah, hi.
Udaya, where are you from?
Oh,
I'm from Raleigh, Cary, North Carolina.
Hi, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Thank you. So this is very informative session. I'm not too technical. I'm like 20 to 30% technical. I was preparing from 2 weeks, but this session helped me a lot. Whatever I'm preparing from last 2 weeks, it like I understood in this 90 minutes everything.
Wonderful.
So
thank you.
It is very informative and helping for me.
Thank you.
Anil, I think you are in mute.
I could lip read Anil, maybe. He said everything. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, Anil.
He's
like awesome.
That's okay. Sorry, Vamsi, you were saying something. We can go ahead.
No. I think couple of you guys are preparing for certification. There is nothing wrong with the certification. You can just like maybe say, I got certified by AWS. I got like maybe AWS knowledge, but in the marketplace, that is not enough. You need to go deeper. So pick one area and master that area. Marketplace is ready to pay whatever you ask for. Like say I want $500 per hour. Marketplace is ready to pay that money as long as you have that knowledge. So this is like maybe the certification is the beginning of your journey. Don't stop it there. You need to go deep, and you need to just like pick a topic and become the master of the topic. Once you become that, I think like you are going to be unstoppable. A couple of you guys, you completed marathon this weekend. You ran like maybe 10 miles, 15 miles, just like that. If you go ahead with this, like maybe this technology, I think you can do whatever you want. Again, Venkat, thank you so much for your valuable time and also like all the preparation you did behind the scenes. And definitely I can see like maybe this session alone, like thousands of dollars of value for all of us.
Thank you, Vamsi. It's always fun. As I said, that's what I love about teaching. So any day.
Before I forget to ask a question, Hari, sorry, Venkat, what is the best area that we can pick in AWS, whatever, to get a very good knowledge and as well as to get a good money?
So, as Vamsi said, this certification is definitely valued once you put it on the resume. You're definitely valued. So after that, the couple of areas, especially now, are Lambdas and serverless architecture. Go deep on that, and and of course, your big data, your data lakes, and AWS has business intelligence. Business intelligence probably is one of the hot topics now. So Amazon has a service called Redshift, and even S3. You can dump all of your data in S3. They have the concept called data lake. So using the data lakes, you'll be able to analyze it by utilizing a concept called massive parallel processing, and a couple of concepts. There's another one called columnar data structure. So you using that. So essentially, that's where I'm thinking. Big data, if that's okay, if that's your interest. Or security aspect, you can go pretty deep in security. Yeah, that's another aspect. There is a specialty certification out there for security. So I recommend that if you are if you want to be a security guy. Okay. But this is a starting point. This certificate will give you the landscape of the complete AWS, and after that you can go deep.
Venkat, do you mind I share a quick story?
Absolutely, Vamsi.
So a couple of you know Kobe Bryant, yes. Right?
Yep.
So one day Kobe went to London to participate in one of the tournament. So every time he goes to a tournament, the committee assigns a new coach, new trainer for him. So day before, he told his trainer, tomorrow morning, I'm going to go to practice at 4 in the morning. The trainer looked at him and said, 4 in the morning? Wow, that's crazy. Maybe call me if you need any help. So 4:15, he called his trainer and say, hey, I'm planning on doing certain routines. I need somebody's help. If you're available, can you come in? So the trainer said, yeah, I'm available. I came here for you. He went to the gym. By the time he went to the gym, he saw Kobe in full sweat. So he's been like practicing like jumping jacks. He's been like doing his routine, warming up. So the trainer looked at him and said, oh my God, looks like you're fully ready for this one. And he spent like 1 hour with him completing that routine. So it's time around like 5:30 in the morning. The trainer said, I'm super tired. I wanted to go back to the hotel room and get ready for our match. I think you did fantastic job in the last like 90 minutes. Why don't you just like maybe go and relax and we'll meet at 10 o'clock. Kobe said, yeah, but he did not go. So fast forward like at 10 o'clock, the trainer came back and saw Kobe was throwing his basic one-shot throws. And trainer said, oh my God, like this guy came in earlier already. And he went to Kobe and say, yeah, I took rest for like 2 hours and like it was really good. We had like a killer practice in the morning. So how about you? You had breakfast, you had like some nap or anything, and say, Kobe looked at him and said, what? The trainer did not understand. You did not go to hotel room and take a rest or like maybe nap? It's like, no, after you left, I went to the gym and started lifting the weights. Then I went out for a run. Then I came back and started practicing my 1,000 shots. Those are the basic shots, like maybe any high school kid will practice those shots. So the point I'm bringing here, we are talking about Kobe. He's no longer here on the planet, but maybe we're going to be talking about him for the next 10, 20 years because of his commitment, right? So always think about it. Whatever that you're picking up, like the certification that you're going to be giving in 20 days, 25 days, always be like that. Give your best. Don't just like say, I wanted to take a rest for like maybe half a day and then maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I'll just like maybe prepare to pass the certification. Those are the things I think like not going to give you any return. Always like look for the best in this game. So whatever is Venkat is teaching, I know a couple of you already getting like his direct coaching. Couple of you, I think like maybe you're preparing on your own. Doesn't matter. Always look, you're going to be the best in that field. Give your best. Make sense, guys?
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
That's nice,
question. Vamsi, one generic question, Vamsi. This is always tickling me in my mind for the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
What is best? What is best? There is no thin line, right? So how to make that itself is a best? I'm very sorry and very blunt my question. I have this question in mind always.
If your daughter is asking the same question, what is your response?
Okay, I myself prepared one response. Okay, I am thinking that might not be the correct one. Okay, so the best has a thin line for everyone. Like if I think that, okay, if I know all the concepts in AWS, I am thinking that I am the best guy in Amazon. If someone thinks that he's only master in somewhere in HBase, he thinks that he's a best guy. So here, we are all entrepreneurs and we are all, in corporate industry. Is there any different sort of the definition where we can digest and move forward to give the best?
So I know I don't want to take everyone's time here. If you can explain whatever the concept that you're preparing for a 4-year-old.
Okay.
So that means you really understand the concept. So you can call that self like maybe say you're the best. A lot of people make things like a lot complex. So you need to always like see how you can simplify the things. It's not about like see how I'm doing like maybe 100 things. It's all about the fundamentals. How clear are you and how strong are you with the fundamentals? If you are clear with the fundamentals, you can do anything. Kobe Bryant did not practice like maybe say expensive or like maybe most a complicated shot. He always practiced his fundamental shot.
Okay, I got the answer. Yes, I got the answer and I was wrong. Thank you.
No. I think like, see, there is nothing right or wrong in this world. It's all about like maybe say how we are interpreting those things, Nara.
And also,
no. I understand the definition of the best to a certain extent. I'll explore more. Thank you, MC. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much.
And also, like even if you become the best, there are always areas to explore. So if we keep improving, keep yourself comparing yesterday's yourself with today's yourself, that you can still improve every day. So you shouldn't be comparing with anybody or becoming the best or things like that. So only thing you could compare with your yesterday and how good you are improving. So that makes you comfortable and everybody comfortable. And even if you become the best, there is chance to grow. Otherwise, you'll stop growing.
Oh, okay. So you mean to say that we should be best with respect to ourselves, not with the world. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Right. Don't compare with the world. Everything is in your mind. How you organize yourself, that makes the best out of you. So all the solutions, all the goals you want to achieve, everything is in your mind. How you organize yourself is different. Time is same, weather is same. It is going to rain for everybody. It is going to be the same for everybody. The how you look at things makes things different. So organize your mind and your composure, your health, your everything.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks, Vamsi, one more time.
Excellent. Karuna, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here, Vamsi.
All right. What do you think? Like, I know you're just preparing for the certification.
This is excellent because even though I'm a new, so I learned a lot of things from Venkat. Venkat, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. and in-depth knowledge. And so I'll follow up on this one, and I'll join next class also. This is excellent. And Vamshi, the example, the motivation what you gave about the coffee brand, that's excellent, man. I appreciate that one. This is very good example in time. I'll appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for both.
Sure.
You're welcome.
Sorry, the next session is not free though. Just kidding.
What is that?
Today
Sorry.
today it was just a teaser. The next session is the main picture.
That's fine, man. That's fine, because the thing is that first impression, you know. Am I right?
Yeah, I think I could not hear you completely. I'm sorry. That's okay. Very good.
All right, guys. Any last minute questions? Anything before we end the call? This is going to be recorded. I'm going to be placing entire recording into Dropbox. Again, Dropbox. I think like I learned something new. Amazon controls the Dropbox.
Yeah. The entire Netflix is on AWS.
Vamshi or Venkat. So Venkat, if I have any questions, what's the best way to contact you? Like if I need some clarifications or something.
Yeah. I can
Karuna,
provide.
if you don't mind, can you type your phone number and email address in the chat?
Sure.
So I can send you a copy of this recording as well.
Oh, that would be excellent. Yeah.
Srinivas as well.
Yeah.
Also,
you can do it.
I'm sending my contact number.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Vamshi and Venkat. This is definitely a refresh for all of us.
Yeah.
Excellent, Srinivas. Sindhu, Udaya, Uma, any insights, anything? It looks like you're calm. Maybe Sindhu, you're just refreshing.
Yeah. They've been getting this every day.
Yeah, it's great taking classes from Venkat always. But it's good to see you again, Vamsi.
Sure. All good?
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much, Venkat.
Thank you, guys. Have a nice evening.
Yep.
Great, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Venkat.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, Venkat. This is really, really good. I think even I learned so many things.
I know you are. How did you do your website, Vamshi? Is that you didn't use any of the Amazon services?
No, actually, I went with customizable software called Teachable.
Oh, okay. Okay. So where you were recordings will end up?
So all the recordings goes to two-step process. First, I store it in my local Mac. Right. Then I upload it into Dropbox. From Dropbox to Teachable.
Oh, okay. So it ending up in Amazon. Okay.
It's yeah.
Okay. No.
Teachable software as a service. You don't have to worry about anything.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Vamsi and Venkat, I was just joking, okay? When he said the next session is not free, I don't know how it was received.
That's what he said.
We need some humor.
Right.
We need some humor.
Elaborated, so.
Okay. Because some of them, they are joining for the first time, so yeah.
Nara, did you get all the answers?
Yes, Vamsi. The basic reason that I was answered this, that I asked that question is, whatever the stories that you are telling in the session, the same stories, I'm preparing myself and preparing some sort of a notes and in an understandable format and explaining to my kids.
Absolutely, that's really beautiful.
So I explained the story of the old lady. My younger kid asked many questions which I was not able to answer. So that's the reason. I mean, I was thinking, why can't I deliver best? Is my communication problem? Is my preparation problem? Or is my vocabulary problem? Or thinking or whatever? Then I was thinking that okay, there is a okay. So if I say best with my I mean with respect to me, I deliver the best. With respect to them, they are thinking that I did not give the proper information to them in their understandable way. So okay, now I understand that. Okay, the fundamentals should be correct, and based on that, and we need to prepare for audience. Prepare based on the audience and deliver the best.
Sure.
That's what I understand, Vamsi.
Sure. All right.
Yeah, actually, for this preparation also, for me also, I was a little skeptical. So should I prepare for newbies or Vamsi and I had 1 or 2 calls on that. So, but then we settled for, because most of you guys are preparing for AWS, right? So I wanted to get big bang for you guys.
Srinivas is giving exam like next week, right? Or 10 days.
No, I have 2 certifications, Oracle ones, free ones. So those ones I'm planning Tuesday one and probably next Saturday. So maybe I'll delay it by 5 days or something.
Awesome.
Like yeah, course wise I'm done online, but like 20% left. So but yeah, overall I want to do these Oracle ones. Somebody said they're easy, so and they're free before 15th or something. Do you guys want link, any of you?
What is that certification, Srinivas?
Oracle Cloud is all free certifications until 15th of this month.
I see. I see.
All cloud certifications. Some of them $250, $300, something.
Okay.
So Oracle is trying to come up with a third force, right? So from the cloud.
Right. Yeah. Recently they're pushing these certifications so much. So yeah, it seems like they're working on it. Yeah.
Sure. Recently, Zoom moved to Oracle as well.
Oh, nice. My company also submitted a proposal. This is how much we are paying to Amazon, how much you are going to give us, how much you're going to save. So if that proposal flies, I think my company will end up moving Oracle.
Maybe there is an opportunity there, Venkat.
Right.
It's the same concept, right? So maybe terminology and
it's very similar.
Bharat gave me that, okay, this is the course you should be watching 3 hours and you will be able to write this exam. So he gave me all the links and things. So I'm grateful.
How many certifications are there, Oracle?
I think, I don't know, maybe there are 5 I can see, but there might be many. But in general, everything is Oracle, right? Java is Oracle, Oracle is Oracle, and Cloud, there are 5. Out of them, I just signed up for 2 of them. So